Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the game show we like to call What's Under the Table, featuring Evil Geniuses Revival. We'll find out after this. My name is totalbiscuit, and of course we have the one and only axslav here doing that analysis. And I gotta say, as a Protoss Pro player, you gotta be loving all these Zerg versus Zerg, right?
Well, I'm a little bit sad Hero didn't lose, so I guess you'd see some more Protoss games.
Yeah, that would be fun, wouldn't it?
Yes, of course. Hero actually just looked so insanely strong in that last set. I mean,
that guy's terrifying. I'm surprised he was even legally allowed into the country. He should be considered a deadly weapon that can't be taken aboard an aircraft.
Absolutely phenomenal Protoss play from him. And, you know, on the one hand, Suppy also, he kind of seemed like he hadn't practiced Zerg vs Protoss as much as Zerg vs Zerg. And, I mean, that's what he said. He said he focused on Zerg vs Zerg.
Yeah.
And it kind of did show. He seemed a little bit not sure of how to deal with some of the builds that Hero was utilizing. But our next match here is going to be Scarlett vs Revival. Of course, so far today, we've seen a couple of great matches.
Yes, we have.
They started off with Hero taking out Scarlett 2-0.
Those games were a bit closer than I think a lot of people gave them credit for, honestly, but it also showed that Hero's decision-making was spot on, dealing with something of a different composition, handling it pretty well. And now we're going to see Scarlett go against Revival. Now, if I know one thing about Scarlett, it's Scarlett Zerg vs Zerg is extremely strong. We saw great results, in fact, just recently as she bust out a super aggressive play against Bung Bung in Axiom Mesa versus Zubu. Very, very confident play from her. And it also shows that she's got a lot of variance. And as I mentioned earlier, the American Zerg Cabal is a very scary thing. They talk amongst themselves, they share strategies. So I would definitely not count her out of this series by any stretch of the imagination. She certainly has what it takes to go on to face up against Suppy in the final match, which is a bit of a lousy situation for American fans because it means that we have two fan favorites, one from Canada, one from America, having to knock each other out. But then I always feel like we ignore that Revival's even here, and that's like, yeah, he's here, and he's really good, but we really want to talk about the other person. Like, no. Revival is very, very good, but he has shown a bit of inconsistent performance. He's, for the most part, playing in Pro League. He has a tendency to get into positions where he's got an advantage in a game, and then kind of lose, which is unfortunate. Pro League's a very, very stressful place indeed against some of the best players in the world here. Zerg vs Zerg is also a very, very volatile matchup, but Revival, as always, looking confident. He never looks anything but. It's hard to really read his face. Like, I don't want to play poker with that guy, I tell you that for a fact.
Very, very calm and collected, and
yes,
we actually saw some of what you were saying earlier about how he gets ahead and sometimes loses against Suppy.
Exactly, yeah. He was in plenty of positions where he could have won, but he threw his army into disadvantageous engagements.
That's right. We also saw a similar thing from Scarlett actually against Hero. Both games against Hero, Scarlett had significant leads at different sections of the game. Just really good, macro, micro. But then it got to that late game positioning game, and Hero just absolutely kind of took her apart in that late game. So here we have two players in this losers match who, in their series, they both had games where they were winning, and then unfortunately, their opponent just outplayed them as the game went on. So they're both kind of looking to, basically say, you know what, that's not my true form. I'm going to show the world exactly how great I am at this game.
You say that they're going to reach their final form? Is that how it's going to be?
That's exactly what we're going to see. We're either going to see the final form or we're going to see them leave the tournament and be stuck back down the Challenger Division because, of course, the loser of this match is going to be out the round of 16.
Well, hopefully it doesn't take 3 episodes to get to that final four. Next time on WCS NA, we have EG Revival ready to rock and roll. Scarlett, unless she's using a touchscreen, certainly isn't, so we'll have to wait for her to confirm. All right, she seems like she's good to go, and as a result, I am going to start the lobby and get things rolling. Neoplanet S will be the first map for this best of 3 series, and that's going to be followed by Star Station and Belshia Vestige if we get to game 3.
This map is always very exciting to see how players try to take advantage of the fact that there's 2 very separate paths around the map, and if you can catch your opponent off guard, take a path they didn't expect, you can sometimes catch them by surprise and get a nice engagement position.
Yes, you can. I love the fact that this map's got gold bases because they serve no practical purpose other than for decoration because no one ever takes them. But it is, at the end of the day, a Casper map. Scarlett just pausing just to make sure. Oh, apparently there's a graphics bug. Okay, well, we'll have to sort that one out momentarily. But in the meantime, yeah, those two paths are the most important points. The gold bases, they seem like the biggest feature of the map, but they're actually not. They're fairly rarely used. They're used in Pro League every now and again for very specific, mostly economically focused cheese builds. But in this case, those two paths, especially in Zerg versus Zerg, which can get very, very fast moving towards the start of the game with speedlings, do really come into play.
They really do. And you know, one of the things you're talking about, how the gold bases aren't used very often, but they're kind of there and they're always in your mind.
Yeah.
I think that's a really cool feature of this map. It's not, you know, there, at least most of the early maps that had central bases or central gold bases, even like the first version of Antigua.
Yeah.
Basically, the map was okay. Who can take the base and defend it? Okay, they're gonna win.
Yeah,
and it was
exactly.
just that simple.
Well, you remember Metalopolis and as well. You know, there's a great example of stuff that tend to go on for a while, because if both players took their gold bases, they just built these ridiculously large armies and just charged at each other over and over and over again. It was pretty silly to watch. But in this case, those gold bases are ridiculously exposed. Like, take it, you don't transition naturally in your build order to taking that gold base in the center. It's there, it's in your mind. It's like, there's a possibility you can take it. If something, we're just going to have to regame, by the way, so we'll be going into that momentarily. It's there, and there are some situations where you can actually take that on. Funnily enough, Neoplanet S is a map that I've spoken to many pro players, and they've actually said they don't really like playing on it, because it really can swing any way very, very quickly. It does tend to favor a lot of two-base play. Taking the third can be quite difficult in some matchups. For Zerg versus Zerg, though, I mean, it seems like a pretty decent map.
It is. It's really a stylistic map. So like you said, there's some pro gamers who they just like to kind of sit back and macro up a huge force.
Yep.
Neoplanets is a little bit tougher to play on because there's so many tactical considerations when you're trying to play that macro game, which makes the mid-game, especially the early mid-game, much more action-packed. And it's also one of the situations where you can't just get a larger army and say, okay, I'm just going to walk across the map and kill them, because they could always counterattack on the other path. And, you know, depending on the matchup and your current situation, you may not be willing to initiate a base trade. So I think this map almost is the most tactical and strategically focused map out of the pool. Which I think it's nice to have one or two like this, and you can have one or two, you know, make your Doom Army and have fun maps like Aklon Waste, one or two of the more tactical maps like this, and then some hybrid ones like Belshire Vestige, where you can macro pretty decently, but there's also a lot of cool tactics. There's so many ramps to control. The right and left side, you can move around between, and we saw Hero do that exceptionally well.
Very much a vertical map as well. You know, you either take your fourth base to the left or you take it to the right. The army position of your opponent and knowing where your opponent's army is actually crucial to being able to do that. We saw slow compositions don't work well on that map. You go up to something like Broodlord, so you go up to a slow-moving mech composition as the Terran player, or even a big death ball as Colossus and Protoss. You just can't really maneuver properly. You've got to be in one place. You've got to keep your army together. That means the other side's vulnerable, and it's back and forth, back and forth. It's difficult to deal with. All right, we're going to try this again, and hopefully there won't be a graphics bug this time around. These guys are both ready to rock and roll, as am I, so we're going to start the countdown for Neoplanet S for the second time, and let's see whether or not it actually works.
Hopefully it does this time. Of course, this is going to be a very tense match. I mean, Revival's got to be thinking, okay, I've already lost one ZVZ, but you know what? In round 32, exact same thing happened. He lost the first set to Ghost User, went to the losers match, won his ZVZ versus Idra, and then actually won his final ZVZ to get revenge against Ghost User. So he's definitely capable of coming through here and defeating Scarlett.
Man, he's had so much practice at Zerg vs. Zerg and WCS so far. You know, it's been a really nice run for him. But he now faces up against one of the best foreign players in the world to the northeast position in the Red Trunks. Playing Zerg, it is Acer Scarlett versus her opponent to the southwest position. Also playing Zerg in the blue trunks, Evil Geniuses Revival.
He is always so collected and intense, man.
Someone needs to make a Revival emotion chart. We need to see that. Sad Revival, Tense Revival, Scared Revival. It's all exactly the same. Again, he needs to go to Vegas. I think he missed his calling.
You know, a lot of the top StarCraft players do make very good poker players.
Absolutely, they do. Yeah.
And especially if you're like Revival, with the super poker face combined with the analytical abilities.
Ooh, that's scary.
Do not bet against this guy, no matter what type of gambling game it is.
We would not recommend it. That would be bad for your financial position. Although, if you do want to contribute money to a future esports superstar, great way to do it, right? Support that esports scene by playing poker against Revival. What an awesome plan. Revival has no idea that we're planning his future career out for him right here on the stream.
He's going to hear about it later.
There's going to be... stupid foreign casters. All right, we've got Scarlett with the hatchery first on 15 supply here versus the pool first, with no gas coming down for either player so far.
Both players just going to, get their expansion before progressing to the gas, and then unless we see kind of a funny build like we did out of Revival in the first 2 games against Suppy, we'll probably see both players get their gas fairly soon.
I would think so. And with the gas not kind of coming down early, the difference between the pool and the hatchery is not that big. With the pool coming up early, you think, oh, you can get earlier speed. Not without any gas, you can't. So the pool's just going to be sitting there and looking pretty for a while. And then we see the gas coming down here for Scarlett. So oddly enough, even with the pool coming down first for Revival, we'll probably see speed actually coming out quicker for Scarlett.
You know what's interesting? Revival is actually not taking any gas, so I suspect he's going to do that same build he did in the first 2 games against Suppy. But I'm sure Scarlett has either talked to Suppy or already seen those games.
She was definitely watching them.
Yeah, so she has to recognize, okay, this is a possibility he might do this, and all she has to do is just keep an eye in front of his base to identify that this build is actually going to happen.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's bustable. There's no real question about that. You can figure out a way to do it. But will she be able to identify if this is the case? Already decent Overlord positions here for Scarlett, so can that Overlord get in and see gases? Potentially. The problem is Zerg are tricksy, and they like to take the gas down to the natural here, so if an Overlord comes into the main, it doesn't see gas and doesn't get any info. But once the Speedling comes up, of course, it'll be able to scout pretty much everything. And still no gas coming out here for Revival, so it does very much look like the same build.
Scarlett is still mining gas with 3 drones, so wants to progress up to the baiting nest as soon as possible. This is the standard way to play ZVZ.
Yeah.
You get that speed, you keep some drones on gas, you can get a baiting nest, and then you're totally safe, because as long as your overlords are in front of their base, if they run out a whole bunch of speed needs, you can morph baitings.
Yeah, exactly. There's no real way to deny that. Scarlett's actually roaming across the map quite a bit here with the Queen, and usually you wouldn't want to do this. For one reason, you are in a situation where you can't get an inject, but secondly, you also don't, you leave your Queen out in a position where it could be surrounded and killed by Speedlings. But it's very unusual to see that happen. Scarlett actually kills off the Overlord, roams halfway across the map to chase it with a Queen, which does move slightly faster than Overlord, and is able to deny that scouting information you were talking about there that would have allowed Revival to see any kind of pressure coming. The thing is that there is a second Overlord right there that she hasn't seen. So that would spot any rollout.
Scarlett going straight to lair and then going up to 4 gases. So this is most likely going to be that Mulis build that we used to see so often in Heart of Swarm, but today we haven't quite seen yet. Revival doing his tried and true double Evo Roach Warren. He's going to double upgrade those Roaches and go for Roach speed as well.
Nice wall off here. That's the nice thing about Revival's build, really. It looks weak when you think about it, but if you look at the actual structures themselves, look at the position, especially on a map like this, you can wall off, you can get the Queens at the front, and straight up Speedlings will not bust it. It gives map control, certainly, but that really is about it. Now, we will see where this decides to go from here. With 4 gas available, it will be double upgraded. With double evolution chambers, it certainly will not be Spire play, at least initially here from Revival. He is going to go for the +1 ranged attack upgrade. Let's see if Scarlett goes Spire with 4 gases, no Evo chamber, very likely, and there it is.
And the goal here for Scarlett is to get those mutas out and map to take map control. Of course, Revival can try to roach timing, but Revival's build is actually not timed for a fast roach timing. He usually goes up to about 50 drones first, and he waits to get 1-1 and roach speed before moving out. This is all going to mean that Scarlett's mutas will be out on the field in time to defend this type of timing.
Ooh, almost going to surround them. If she had a couple more Speedlings, she could have made that work. Just doing a little bit of damage here and there. She's going to have to back off for a while. And let's see how many Mutilas she'll be able to put out, and more to the point, how will they be defended? Because, of course, Revival has no intention of building that Spire. He hasn't built any Spore Crawlers yet. He doesn't really have any information at all, and that's kind of the disadvantage of Revival's build. If you don't have Overlords in good position, there's no way you can get out on the map and find out what your opponent's doing.
Has he seen that? Okay, he's making an Overseer near the 3rd base of Scarlett, but I don't think he's seen that 3rd base quite yet. He's going straight to the main. He is going to see that Spire, but he's going to see it too late to really do a game-ending timing attack. He still may want to send the Roaches out.
He's actually not going into the main with it. He's turning back instead of checking the main. But oh, never mind. He actually has 2 of them. There was a second one that went in there. Very cool.
Very diligent with this scouting. The question is he going to send these roaches out to attack? And of course, the mutas will kill them, but if he attacks, the mutas will have to stay back to defend, and also he can get a decent amount of damage that maybe kill a third or kill some drones at a natural before the mutas can actually finish off this giant pack of roaches.
Let's see. He's got to push forward, really, doesn't he? And that's already going to be seen here by Scarlett. And Revival will just say, all right, time to go for it here. And it would be... this is the cool thing about this build, is that it will have +1 ground armor by the time that this hits, which means those mutas are going to be significantly less effective against the Roach pack. And Roach is now moving into position, and we're going to see these Mutalisks go to engage. Picks off a Spore Crawler trying to build there, takes a drone as well. And the thing is, since Revival didn't actually attack, he's now in a position where he's just going to kind of stay home and just let these Mutalisks have free reign for a while.
Revival looks like he wants to do maybe a later Roach Hydra timing to try to take down Scarlett. Of course, only on 2 bases. He does want to put on some pressure at some point, but he has to have some mobile anti-air before he can do that.
Lovely transfused micro here by Revival, actually, and that's resulted in Scarlett taking significant damage. The Spore Crawler, I would like to point out, by the way, that anyone that said that the Spore Crawler only does damage against 1 unit now is a complete liar, as we saw the Overseer go down incredibly fast as well. No one has talked about that. Maybe it's just a little thing that I'm just obsessing over, but it's actually great to really deny a lot of scouting information, because Overseers die super quickly if they pass over a Spore.
Anything that Spore can hit will pretty much die instantly from the Zerg's point of view. Maybe even late game, talking about abducting Corruptors and Broodlords into Spores could be pretty...
I'd love to see that. That would be so funny to watch.
20 Broodlords is instantly pop. It'd be pretty crazy. So we see Scarlett actually getting Baneling speed. This is, of course, because she realizes her opponent has invested in a lot of upgrades and Roach speed, and is going to Hydra. So the odds of Revival being able to really get any Infestors or anything to really counter the Banelings and prevent them from getting to the Hydra isn't very high. So if he goes for this Roach Hydra timing, she should be able to shut it down with Mutalisks and Banelings.
Yeah, that'll be good to see. And these Mutas have not done a huge amount, but they have kind of kept... Oh, wow. Revival's actually marching. This is a march of the Queens.
That's a lot of Queens.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be the slowest attack in history, and Scarlett's, of course, going to see that coming across, but she can't really go anywhere near it. The Queens come along to support the Hydras, give transfuses to the Roaches. He's backing off now, interestingly enough. What do you think about the fact that Revival's had a lot of units this game and basically hasn't done anything with them, really? Is this a situation he's been forced into?
He really has. Like, his whole build, he can't really move out until he has anti-air, and he doesn't have enough Hydras in his army to fight against the Baneling Mutas force. And so he wants to push out, but the Queens are so slow off creep, they're having a really hard time keeping up with the rest of his army. He's trying to desperately spread creep with as many tumors as possible to get those the creep spread out there for the Queens, but it takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, it's really annoying as well. There's a situation where you could maybe bring Overlords in with Overlord speed to do it, but then they get killed by the Mutalisks, so it's not an ideal scenario. All right, Scarlett's got a bit of a bad engagement arc here because she has to filter herself through these Spine Crawlers, but with Infestors in the mix, this could be a really interesting fight. The Roaches are now moving forward, and the Queen's actually going to get hit by the base. This is a really inefficient engagement for Scarlett, and look at how many units she lost. A huge amount of Banelings charging in here, and now the Hydras move in. Let's see if Revival has enough to break it. I didn't like that engagement from Scarlett at all, and it looks like we will see Revival able to break this defense.
Ideally, she would have really gotten into the Hydras line with those Banelings as is. Taking out the Queens is nice, but there's still too many units from Revival. Scarlett doesn't have enough to defend this.
No, and Revival was... You can't really blame Scarlett for that, because Revival was incredibly smart to keep the Hydras all the way back, put the Queens out and say, you've got to deal with these right now, otherwise we're going to attack. And there's the GG. Revival plays a very slow style, grinds his units very slowly across the map, and just annihilates Scarlett's composition. The Queens at the front sponged all of those Baneling hits completely, even with a fungal. Queens just don't die that fast to Banelings, and that was what, 20 plus Banelings that charged in and smashed against Queens, and then just like 25 Hydra sitting behind saying, well, we like the Queens, but we don't like them that much. You can die over there, and we'll now go in and finish the job. Thank you for your brave sacrifice. But, oh man, that is an ugly loss for Scarlett right there. Not really able to do too much with the Mutalisks. Very patient, annoying style from Revival. I mean, that's got to be frustrating to play against. You got to think about, well, how on earth do I engage this? I'm going to get this really good engagement to kill all the Hydralisks off. How? How? He's moving so slowly. All of his units are together. I can't get in with my Mutalisks to do any damage because there's like 50 Queens and 1,000 Hydralisks. I can't attack head-on because there's too many Roaches. And my Banelings can't connect either because they'll just get sniped before they reach the... Oh, God, that is...
She really had to try to set up a flank there, you know.
Yeah.
She saw the army moving across the map, so maybe if she grabbed half her Banelings, kind of sent them around through the middle to come in behind, she would have at least been able to get some hits on the Hydras. I mean, all it takes is a couple Banelings. And
oh, yeah.
Without any infestors, it's very difficult to protect the Hydras if you have to look at two different directions.
Yes.
As it was from one direction, just a giant wall of Queens and Roaches, and there's no chance those Banelings could get through.
Yeah, it was waves crashing against the cliff face, and the cliff usually wins in that scenario. So, yeah, Scarlett takes a tough loss. Clearly not happy with that result. We'll be going into Game 2 very shortly, folks. Scarlett versus Revival. Scarlett 1 game away from elimination here in WCS. We'll find out what happens right after this.